particularly true for the consulting sector. I don't think that consulting as an industry has really laid focus on leaders, on giving the accountability to leaders to build further leaders. I see a lot more of that happening in the industry. But again, going by experience, in the last 2.5 years, we got our CEO. The first thing that we did was he built a very strong second line around himself, and immediately, and we were experiencing attrition levels of 39% at one point in time. The attrition, dropped to half.
Because you're showing them a career path.
It's the quality of leadership. It's really, our engagement levels grew significantly. And now, when consultants go in the market, out in the market, they know that they're going to win. That's the kind of stickiness that a strong leadership can actually bring to an organization.
I do agree with what you've said, and I have a similar experience to share, because even our organization structure, from an FM standpoint, was a little flawed. You had somebody who was heading the business, and he had one head of ops who was on an aircraft every third day, attending a management review at Accenture, at IBM, at Deloitte, at Morgan Stanley, and there was seepage everywhere. And we took this very brave step, and I led the diagnosis of telling them that we're doing this wrong. There is exponential growth, yet there's seepage everywhere. At some point of time, we will not be in a position where consolidation will be possible to begin with, which meant that we had to redefine the structure, or introduce a tier 2, redefine the business leaders tier 1. But what I'm proud of is the fact that the head of operations had the maturity and the ability to let go. It's not easy to suddenly go and tell a stalwart that, what, I think we'll have to bring 2 people more of your stature, because you can't do this alone. And I think the maturity which the gentleman displayed in terms of exhibiting the fact that, all right, I agree to it. I think that there was a leadership quality there, wherein he took onus he took responsibility that something has happened, but this is our opportunity to get it right now. But having said that, that quality cannot be really taught. It's like intrinsic.
It's a DNA trait.
Yeah, it's like a DNA trait.
Something you can interview to assess.
You really can't teach leadership skills. Richard is absolutely right when he says that it's not there in plenty, but you can't teach it.
May I bring something new here? Is it when the students come out of the institution, is it that they have not been exposed? They may have seen a few case studies.
Just one second before you get on that, I think the one more point I just like to make before we leave this off is, I'm not sure we spend enough time while recruiting the person, while hiring them. And I think not enough effort and energy goes there. And we're in a hurry to get people. Like you said, you got 39% going out and you want to fill them up. And we fill it up and then we regret that decision. So I would, we can keep saying it, but a lot of it we can mouth, but we'll still go and make the same mistake. So the amount, because I used to work in Anderson earlier, and we used to have a very, very strict way of recruiting. Very difficult to get into Anderson, it was almost impossible. But a lot of time went on recruiting. And I saw the Brits when they came here, when they were hiring for our global delivery center. We used to wonder why they're spending 10 years to hire one guy.
Absolutely.
But they would go through various rounds of interview and then take that individual. But then we found that they always took the right guy. I mean, a lot of effort went into it. So I think more energy and effort needs to be paid at the time of recruitment. And we would solve some of this.
I'll add something to that. Where I was, like I said, weaving the story is that leadership is a DNA trait, and otherwise, I'm talking about the 66% that stay with you.
Yeah.
They have a DNA too. Today, for example, many of them become leaders, they have a DNA too. If we can, I don't know if any of you have done case studies around them, and inculcate that DNA when you're hiring and spending more time to get those kind of people.
There's a related point of hiring the right talent. I think there has been a rush to go after branded talent rather than going for the right talent. An effort to reduce the search cost.
Absolutely.
So there may be a good guy in some university in Jaipur, but because I don't know that university, and I know Ahmedabad, and I'm not saying that they're bad, but you're just running after the branded talent, and hence it becomes that small, space where everybody is going after the same talent, and you just start saying the same thing, that the skills are not there and the cost is just going up. It's an artificially created talent supply scarcity. Which
Too many chasing too few.
I would like to
segment it into a three-part. Like, let's say if you look at it, you have a front end, right, where you say you go for a branded one. Then you have a middle, and then you have a back end, right. Front end still is the few in the number. They know about. They've been inducted well. They've been informed well. They've been like gone through the multiple processes. They've met all the leadership teams while getting recruited. But when you actually go to the mid and the back end processes, right, it's been a live experiences to us. They are not even informed about the complete organizations. It means somebody who has spent an year in the company, and if you ask him what is the group businesses of the organizations, they'll be blank.
so
Sunil,
it's
I'd like
actually
to add
not
one
so.
thing.
Sorry, yeah, please.
I think that is where we are lacking as an organization. We are not investing.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
the programs which were like campus to corporate, they are missing because I think due to the economic downturn or whatever we can say. So I think that is where what is happening is we just want a kind of we go to the shelf, rightly Mr. Sharma put it, and we just want a person who's ready to go to the client and he delivers here. So I think that is where the burden lies with us as an organization.
So fault is not only with the students.
I
It
think,
is fault with both
yeah,
sides.
I think we should not lose the one point which Mr. Sharma raised about the high quality talent. You see, the point that you made, branded. So we will go to an IIM Ahmedabad and even hire the lowest level company. Now he will not be as good, he or she will not be as good as a top level in any other. So I think it's also where do you want to go and hire top talent, and then it doesn't matter where they come from, because top talent is top talent, right? And that attitude which you will get in those high flyers will be in all organizations, all colleges. So I think that's where we make the mistake of not going down and actually hiring that, and you end up maybe hiring a very low performer from a branded university or
So I will give you an example. Like we hire from IITs because we are an engineering design organization, and we do daily joint group discussions and so on. So one of the student, and we hired him, and when I was talking to him, he said, "Ma'am, whenever you do the group discussions, you always look for the person who speaks good English. Maybe his technology very weak. I mean, he doesn't know anything, but that is what you look in the group discussions and you hire him." And that really hit me because what is happening is we are looking at the presentation, how he's presenting himself, how he'll go to the clients, how he's going to deliver there, but we're not looking at the content, which was rightly said earlier. So I think the fault also lies with us. I mean, we can't put a blame on the universities at how they are or kind of.
So that's what
There was an interesting case when I was doing the hiring from the IMI. There was a student, which he couldn't speak very well in group discussion, and so when we started doing somehow we felt that this guy had something, so we just picked him in the second round. I would say completely on gut feeling. So he started explaining that he got 50% marks in graduation. So why didn't he apply for the best of the company? Why are we joining consulting firm? Because probably for them talent acquisition and IMI is not taken as good as they will probably go for Mercer or Hewitt. So he mentioned that nobody's picking up because I got just 50%, right? And then when we did the brain mapping, and he had the highest emotional quotient, and we did 3 psychometric tests on him. He came as the best of the students, as 50%.
So this happens, and I think there's, we also need to distinguish between the finishing school, which you talked about, which is typically 180 to 200 hours of learning, and there's some skills that you bring because of your grounding that you get. And a student spends 4 years to 6 years in his UG to PG, and I think there are some skills which have to be focused at that level. So, for example, in consulting, your ability to deal or thrive in an ambiguous environment needs to be high. You need to be you can be a very good speaker, you can do number crunching, but if you can't deal with ambiguity, if you start sweating, then you can't deal with that environment. And there's something that I cannot teach the person in 180 hours. So if the institutes can actually put the student, and I'm a product of the same system, right?
Yeah.
Where rote learning, there is no unpredictability in the system. If I know the teacher, I know what kind of questions will come, I'll pass.
Yeah.
So I think we need to train our students to deal with that ambiguity, and especially in these environments, a volatile environment that we are in. Because that is something that cannot be taught. He will pick this up in 6 to 7 years' time on his own in the industry, which will be a good contribution or a great contribution.
I think the one point we should not forget what Gitanjali raised now on leadership, because we all have performance management systems, and all of them could be the best we follow. But somehow the softer side never gets taken care of. So you look at all his numbers and say, okay, he did this sales, he did this revenue, good guy, gets a bonus, promotion, everything else. I don't know how many of us actually sit back and ask him or her, how many leaders did you develop last year?
The mentoring aspect.
And it's, the mentoring and actually building leaders further, because you're growing. How many have you grown? Because I think that's a great test of a leader. How many more leaders have they built along the way? Because when you're talking about leadership pipeline, it gets built right from the youngest stage. And we don't, unfortunately, all of us, all our leadership programs are trained to the most senior people. It's not trained at the junior level when people do really need that training, because that's when their mindset changes. And the second one, what is happening is, because specialization has become so important, people have become very silo focused. So there is no cross-pollination, there is no wide variety of experience, because I shudder to think, as we put out these partners, they will not be KPMG partners. They'll be TP, transfer pricing partners. They will become IT partner, because they will not understand the whole business. Somebody said, he doesn't understand business. They will never understand the whole business, because they're so silo focused, and we are only measuring them on that. Now, I was sitting with this bunch of chartered accountants who just qualified now, and I said, okay, just had lunch with them, and so they said, I wish we could have just rotated around the firm in the 3 years. I could have done, I was in audit, could have done a little bit of tax, a little bit of consulting. I would have been better off, but we don't have that way. So
it's very borders within our mindsets.
No, some of the companies which have started doing, they call it internal job rotation.